Hello, everybody. This is Julissa. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming back to my channel. Thank you so much to everybody who's listening in the podcast right now. It is Friday, November 1st, 2024. I wanted to come here, everybody, and speak about this case and do basically a follow-up episode regarding this important case that we learned about beginning of this year. This is the Mica Miller case. In case you don't remember this case, it's a very sad tragic thing that happened to her. But what stood out the most about this case, besides the fact that Mica actually went and bought a gun and, took her own life. And I should have given you a trigger warning before I said all of that. I do apologize. But these are the times that we're living in right now, you guys. But what I was saying is that besides all of that, what stood out for me regarding this case is the nonchalant way her then pastor, I guess you can say, John Paul Miller, delivered the news to the congregation basically a day or two after it happened, right? And I remember coming here and telling you guys about everything that happened, everything that we have learned about the case, and the way that this pastor, John Paul Miller, addressed the congregation, was able to be there the following Sunday, and basically said what happened to Mica in this very, like I said, very nonchalant way, and actually said, you guys know that she dealt with depression and all of that, and then basically brushing it off and continue on with services as nothing happened, right? And there was a lot of turmoil, I guess you can say, that happened following this case. A lot of the stuff was the manifestation of the people coming outside of the church every Sunday, every time that church was in service, and they were coming out and protesting that he needed to be investigated, okay? And they were out there basically outside the church doors, and that church name is Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, and the protesters were there saying an investigation needs to be done, and how, everything, they were basically accusing him of leading her to commit what she did, right? To do what she did. And I think that is so important. That is so important because we're living in very difficult times, right? And a lot of people are dealing with hard stuff, a lot of mental health issues going on right now. So when you have somebody who already has expressed some type of, I guess you can say, ideation of that, and then you have somebody who's basically pushing you to the limit and basically saying, just do all of that. And I'm trying my hardest here to be very cautious of what I'm saying for very obvious reason. But side note, if anybody needs prayer, please reach out. My email is Julissadesigns.com. I'm going to put it here. So anyways, this case was very tragic. Mica had a big community behind her, supporting her. Like I said, marching outside Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, demanding an investigation to be open for the pastor, John Paul Miller. And he actually did an interview that went viral saying how he had nothing to do with it, and that she dealt with mental health for a long time. And then there was an investigation that came out saying how when they met, they were both married, I guess, or he was married and she was younger, and how the grooming process and all of that. It's a lot of information. And one thing I remember about this case too, when I made the video back in the spring, I said, that the people that that were camping out and marching outside of the church needed for things to play out, meaning like as long as you put this demand on the police, I guess you can say, for news and investigation and things like that, you also put in Mica's private life, up in the spotlight. And friends were coming out and talking, her family was coming out and talking about the relationship and all of that stuff, and everything was it was no longer private, right? Everything was out in the open, basically, to the point that they investigating even when they first met. And that's why, um, you know, now the news for today is that he's actually being investigated. Okay, so let me just tell you what happened. FBI searches the home of Myrtle Beach pastor linked to Mica Miller investigation. Okay, so I guess a lot of people are saying now finally this man, John Paul Miller, is actually being fully investigated by the FBI to the point that they went to his house and actually left with evidence, okay? Federal authorities were at the home of a Myrtle Beach pastor linked to the investigation that gained national attention, okay? FBI spokesperson Kevin Wheeler confirmed during a press conference that they are doing an authorized search at the home of John Paul Miller on Coldwater Circle, and no other information was provided. And it says here around 4 p.m., neighbors said that news agents have been at Miller's home for hours, and the FBI had cleared out. So they left his house with bags. You seen those when the FBI goes in and remove evidence? They left with bags. It says here that early this year, authorities ruled that that Miller's wife Mica died, by, I don't want to say the word, but you guys know, if you guys know this case, you know what I mean. It says here, Mica Miller's death gained national attention due to allegations surrounding her marriage to John Paul Miller. At that time, John Paul Miller was the pastor of Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach. It is unclear if the FBI search was related to her death. I think it was. I mean, obviously. I think that's something that we, as a believer of Jesus, right? We need to remember that no matter how much people think that they're gonna get away with something, God is always watching. And in those moments of hopelessness that Micah felt, you have to understand that Micah is a child of God who prayed for help too, right? Who was in a situation that, for her to feel so hopeless, that means that, it was just a very sad state of mind, I guess you can say. And she's a child of God and she matters to God, and he's not going to let his people get away with it. And I think that was my whole point when I spoke about this case. The last time I spoke about it, I believe it was during the springtime early this year. And I said, let things play out, because the more we say, my concern was this. My concern was for privacy, meaning that as they pointed the fingers up so much at the pastor, right? Rightfully so, right? More and more private information was coming out of Micah and her relationship with the pastor and the thing and everything that she dealt with. And she just passed, right? She just had died, and the family was processing all of that as well. So I thought back then, that being outside of the church and like on a daily basis and marching around, I just feel like, it was a little too early for that people needed things to play out, the investigation to take place. And if there was any official thing that came out and pointed at him, then maybe then the marching should have happened, the protesting outside of the church should have happened. But, like I said, God is not going to let him get away with it, right? And this is the year of everything being exposed. And no matter how much people think they're going to go into a church and play this pastoral thing, play out this ministry thing, and think that they're just going to do that and gain recognition within the church walls and go home and be a master and everything will be fine. Like, God is not mocked, okay? God is not mocked, so you will be exposed. That's why I say to you guys, stay away from sin as much as possible. This is the year of exposure. Everything is going to come out. We can clearly see how God is shaking up especially the church how God is shaking up the church, and things are coming out that people would never thought would happen. I think this demeanor of John Paul Miller that Sunday addressing the congregation and being so, oh yeah, you guys know, you guys heard what happened, and you guys know she though. It's almost like announcing what happened to her, and then immediately saying how she dealt with something. And it was like, wow, like that's your wife. Like, you couldn't get anybody to cover for you. And you sometimes, when you're guilty of doing something, right? I'm just gonna say this as my opinion here. Sometimes when you are guilty of doing something, what we as our human nature to do is basically is to go to places where we are always celebrated, right? The places that we think people will never think negative of us, right? And what a place where people will never think negative of is a place where people look at this pastor as a leader, right? The lead pastor, the leader. So this man probably thought, obviously there hasn't been any report come out of the investigation yet, and they're not really saying much, right? But he probably went there that Sunday morning to that church and announced everything that happened. So normal, thinking, these people here love me. They would never think anything negative of me, right? And like I said, once again, God is not mocked, right? And just as he, perhaps whatever he said to probably push her to do something, eventually what she did, right? I'm sure she also prayed to God and ask for help, and ask for dealing with the relationship. There's a lot of information that came out of their relationship, okay? There were so many things that came out. There's a video also of, you can hear her, describing something that he was doing to her and things like that. Like I said, basically everything about their relationship was exposed. This was one of my concerns, because I thought back then it was too early to be bringing so many details about the relationship so early on. And, the family was just processing everything that happened, right? And there was a video of her buying the gun, and all of that came out. And people thought she was being followed within the gun shop, I guess you can say. So it was just all very, it was a very sad situation. It's a very sad event that happened with her. And then to see the people protesting all the time outside of the church also. But here we are, guys. Today, the FBI raided his house. Okay, one of the neighbors said that he hasn't seen him for the past 4 days. I told you guys all the time, your neighbors, they know basically your schedule. There's a lot of people these days that work from home. And if you live in an apartment complex, people kind of know your schedule, right? So this neighbor, I saw this interview that they did with one of his neighbors saying that John Paul Miller, he sees he usually comes out, walks the dogs, and like do a daily walk throughout the neighborhood, and then or goes shopping, excuse me, and basically that's it. But he said, I haven't seen him in like the past 4 days, right? And I immediately thought, so this man basically knew what was coming. So thinking about that too, I was just thinking that I don't know, I'm trying to say like I'm just saying, I'm like, I hope, like I said, the investigation hasn't been revealed yet, right? The FBI is investigating, and some people they're not even saying what was the reason for them to go to the house. All I'm saying is that I hope that if this man is ready to confess whatever, right? Or maybe he's ready to come out and say, maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh with her, so harsh with my words. And seeing the state of mind that she was in, maybe I should have thought about it. Maybe he gave her ideas. Who knows, right? So I hope that at the end of the day, he's able to have that conversation with the Lord and is able to be clear and then just face the consequences of what he did, right? I thought that was very strange that they say they haven't seen him in the last 4 days and that his truck was gone. So we don't know like where he's at right now. But like I said, I really hope this man, who people are saying he's a fake man of God, but I think we can all agree that we're all dealing with something, right? Whoever is free of sin casts the first stone, right? That's what we all need, Jesus. I hope, I really hope that if he has anything to do with that and, he's feeling that guilty conscience, he's now realizing that he's not going to get away with it, right? And that if anything, he should be confessing to the Lord and coming clean about everything that he did and how he could have handled everything better and also face the consequences, okay? So let me know what you guys think about this. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming back to my channel. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Have a good day. God bless.